In a bug out or even recreational camping situation, you may want to take extra precautions for camp security, depending on what the situation entails. In today's video, we're going to talk about camp security and how to set up an effective tripwire alarm system. Let's get to it. Now, in order to demonstrate our tripwire alarm strategy, we're going to be using this Fithops 209 primer trip alarm. We're going to talk about that more in a minute, but first we're going to talk about the camp layout and the strategy that we're employing. Alright guys, so today we're going to be setting up a perimeter tripwire alarm system. Now, I have my tent set up down there in a bit of a gully. It's winter time, so that's perfect because that means that I'm out of the line of sight of the surrounding area. Any animal or person is going to tend towards the path of least resistance. So if there's a bunch of brush in the way of your campsite, chances are the intruder is not going to enter through that, unless they're like trained covert ops guys and they know everything that I'm going to tell you. But if you can set up your campsite so there are a few direct pathways into it, it's going to help you in having to set up your tripwire alarm. Because to set up a complete perimeter tripwire, it's doable, but it's going to take a lot of work. So we want to kind of try to avoid doing that. And because we only have a handful of alarms and some eye hooks, we have to use those sparingly. Now, if we were just using bear bells, yeah, we could string fishing line around the whole perimeter. But it's not as easy as it sounds. Okay, that means you're going around a lot of trees, and you can cover a very wide perimeter. I would like to have multiple tripwires, especially along the path that I think it's most probable that somebody is going to intrude from. That way I'll be notified and I'll be able to detect if somebody is coming long before they're close. Because remember, the earlier you can detect, the more time you're going to have to respond. Whereas if your tripwire was set up 10 feet from your camp, well, you only have a few seconds to respond. If that's a bear, if it's a two-legged predator, you catch my drift. But if you can put it 20 feet out, that's even better. That means more time and more time for you to respond. The only problem with that is that means you're using a lot more tripwire because you're covering a much wider area. So we want to try to avoid doing that. There's a good chance that if something was to enter my campsite, they wouldn't enter from this region here because there's just so many trees and bushes in the way that it would just be too tedious. But there are pathways that I myself have dug when entering into this campsite, and animals are going to tend to follow that. Animals are lazy just like people, and people are lazy just like people too. Now, what I use is eye hooks. 6 years ago, I made a video using eye hooks, and I think that idea really took off, even though the video didn't really do much. But the idea with using an eye hook is that you can use one perimeter alarm and string it through multiple trees. That way, if a line is tripped over there, my perimeter alarm can go off over here. And I'll demonstrate that, and I'll show you an aerial view of the campsite so you get exactly what I'm talking about. Let's get to it. Okay, so this is the Fithops perimeter alarm, and as you can see here, there's an eye hook that attaches that's going to mount this to a tree like that. There's a linch pin, and then there's a firing pin, which once this linch pin is pulled, that's going to slam down, and there's a primer in here. So I'll just show you that. It's a 209 shock primer, and it just sticks in there. So you can buy these, and you actually don't need a firearms license. You can buy these primer holders. Put the primer in there like that, and then that's going to screw into there. But there's also going to be an eye hook. That's where the eye hook mounts. We're going to put some string on that linch pin. So this is one of the main entrances down into that campsite. And it's also off a back road. So if there was humans coming, humans are likely going to come from this angle here. Probably want to use a transparent or translucent monofilament fishing line because it's going to be the least detectable. But I'm using Camo braid today, which is a bit darker, which is perfect for if this was a summer situation. So we're just gonna screw this into the tree, go into one of the cracks and start. It's not gonna hurt the tree much. All this is doing is tapping the tree. So we got that one there. Means we're gonna have that going to here, and then this one is gonna go all the way to that tree over there. You don't want it too low, but you also don't want it too high that it's either too detectable or you just step over it, right? So these ones, you're probably gonna wanna make them vertical because the rope is, you know, you don't want it like this, you want it like this. So the rope can go through it. Okay, so I got the line in my hand, I'm gonna walk it over to here. The only issue we have is stuff like this getting in the way. These eye hooks really allow you to use one alarm to cover a wide distance, like that. This is where we're going to put the Fithops. Now you want this thing facing your camp because if somebody's coming that way, they're not going to be able to see it. Now these are black. These metal parts might give off a bit of glare. So, I mean, it's always better to have it on the campsite. You could have like an eye hook here and then string it and then run it up the length of the tree all the way up there. If this was like a sustained audible alarm, like one of those electronic personal alarms, you could do that. That way the person couldn't deactivate it on you. Always would be easier if this was not winter. I know somebody's saying, just do this, just do that. Yeah, and usually those guys are doing it in summer environments. So everything's harder here in Canada. Now there is a safety pin on here. I don't know, I don't like it. It doesn't really stay in there well. Like it's only, I guess, for when you have it on the tree. But we want to pull that out. I guess we'll leave it on there for now, just while we're looping the string. We're gonna make sure that there's nothing getting in the way of the line. Now one of the problems with winter is that you're gonna leave a lot of sign on the ground. Like you're gonna leave a lot of footprints. So if this was a human coming through here and they were smart, they're gonna notice that you made a lot of footprints and they're gonna be like, oh, seeing all those footprints might tip them off that there's a tripwire there. So all the more importance of having an invisible tripwire, and that's why using Camo braid like I'm using here in winter time might not be ideal. We see one little snaggy piece here. We're just going to break that. We want to leave a little bit because it will also camouflage it a bit the more stuff we leave. But you don't want anything that's going to compromise the line. So we've managed to set up a tripwire that's around 30 feet long with 3 different angles using eye hooks and only one perimeter tripwire alarm. That means we still have 2 more alarms to put in other parts of our camp. Now this is a comfortable distance from my tent. If I can just get the cameraman to pan over to the tent. So you can see we're about 25-30 feet from the tent. Okay, that's a nice distance for me. That's enough time for me to react and respond to whatever threat has entered the campsite, and this is going to be audible enough from that distance. If you struggle with, you know, having too much or too little, you can just take a stick like this, wind it up like that, and that'll give you a little bit more tension if you need, you know, to go around twice, or if you need a smaller stick. And so you just take this stick and just put it like that, and it'll look pretty natural. Like it's gonna look like it's kind of standing up from the tree. You know, when you're walking this way, you're just gonna see a little stick protruding. It's nothing that you're probably gonna pay attention to anyways, and that's gonna give you just that right amount of tension. Okay, so that means that it's just gonna take a little bit of movement to trigger that, but enough that
gonna have to be something and not just the wind.
Okay, so this is one of the most critical points, because this is where I think if somebody was to enter the campsite, they would come in. So, got nice good tension on it. So, let's just try it out. So now if we want to reuse that tripwire alarm, all we got to go and do is add another primer. This is the spent primer. Okay, so another option is using bear bells. Some people use rocks and tin cans. That works too. Bear bells are small, they're compact, and they make a bit of noise, okay? Now, when they're dangling, they're gonna make that sound. The problem is it's not that loud, but it's a bit more sustained than a bang. Now, you could use those, so you could use this electronic alarm and string it up in the same way. Now, one of the problems with this is that I find that these high-pitched sounds, they don't carry too well through the forest, especially on a windy day. Whereas that loud pop, I mean, you're gonna hear that. The problem with the loud pop is that it's only one pop. So if you're a deep sleeper and you hear the pop and you wake up, but you don't know why you woke up, you know, you might just go back to bed, okay? The benefit is that it's a sustained sound, which is not gonna be just instantaneous and a one-off sound, but it's not gonna be as loud and not as reliable. These are made pretty cheap, probably about 100 decibels or so. So, you know, you're gonna have to have these a little closer to your campsite, I would say. And the bear bells, they're even quieter. So, you know, you're gonna want these nearby. I wouldn't put them more than 10 feet away from my tent, especially on a windy day. Now, if it was quiet, calm, you're probably gonna hear these from much further away. So we would just put this on the line, ideally closer to the end of the tree, so it's not just something that's hanging. As you can see, not much of a sound, but still enough that might indicate that trouble is afoot. Yeah, so it's important to reclaim your tripwire after you're done, especially if you're using a heavy pound fishing line, because an animal will get ensnared in there and possibly meet its demise, because this is very strong stuff. Camo braid fishing line is just an excellent thing to put in a survival kit, because it has so many uses. You can make a really good bowstring out of it, because unlike monofilament fishing line, this won't stretch. Alright, so I set up another tripwire on the opposite side of the camp, and it spans 3 trees, and I'm guessing probably 60 feet or so. So we covered 60 feet this way with one perimeter alarm with one angle. The other tree, we had 2 angles, worked like a charm. So now I'm gonna have this dimension covered, and then I'll just have to do that other side over there. It starts right here. Now, you don't need an eye hook at this end. You could just tie it to the tree, so you don't need to waste an eye hook. But, you know, for the sake of why the hell not, and for just demo purposes. So then it goes to here. And then it goes all the way over to here, and we'll go back over to the opposite side. Let's move that brush out of the way. The Fithops is over there, probably, if you're speaking in yards, probably 30 yards. So if I trip this, just like that. So it works, that's all I can say. I mean, it just works. It's a really good system, easy to string up, and it's reusable. So now all I have to do is go put another primer in there, and this thing is good to go. Okay, so this is my tripwire kit. And basically what we got going on here, and the dog is harassing the cameraman right now. And so we got 4 of the Fithops perimeter alarms. We have a notepad back there, just in case you wanted to sketch out an area. We also have some eye hooks in the back and a little baggie, some other miscellaneous pins. Underneath here, we have some 2 spools of Kevlar thread, so that can be used for making the actual tripwire line. Here we have just a small Niteize pen. We have some 209 shoddy primers, and we have these Niteize cam jams. They're good for if you want to put tension on a line without having to tie a knot, and they allow for variable tension. We just have an extra eye hook. These are some of our electronic alarm devices, some carabiners, and some spider wire camo fishing line. So that's pretty much the tripwire kit, and pack's pretty small, and this will fit inside the bug out roll. So nice little kit to have. The reason why I have 4 of these is because depending on where you are and how many wires you want to set up, you know, that might seem like a lot, but if you're covering a large area and you're doing full 360 coverage, it's actually not as much as you might think. I want to thank you guys for watching if you made it this far, and if you have any questions about the methodology I used to deploy this tripwire system today, please let me know in the comments section below, and by all means, click like, comment, subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and I greatly appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Canadian Prepper out. The best way to support this channel is to support yourself by gearing up at CanadianPreparedness.com. Your one-stop shop for premium, high-quality, brand-name products that have been tried and tested by myself and other YouTube gear reviewers. My subscribers save 10% off by using the coupon code SURVIVALPREPPER. All one word in all caps.